So the next AOI I'll go over is the NXR Service Data AOI. So I'm going to put it in a program by itself on a rung by itself, but that isn't necessary. So there are a few things that need to be tagged. I'll go ahead and create those variables. Now, due to a limitation in the software, the PLC can't programmatically change the service code of a message. So the SIP SC34 variable stands for SIP service code 34. So when you open the configuration dialog for it, you need to manually enter service code 34, and then the source and destination element tags are going to be the SIP source and SIP destination that were tagged on the front of the AOI itself here. And then one last final step is under the communication tab, you need to point to the NXR on the network. So I'll go ahead and hit apply, close out of the dialog, and then I'll transfer that to the controller. Now what I'll be doing with this AOI is reading and writing service data from an IO-Link device. So every IO-Link device will have an index list somewhere that gives you indexes and sub-indexes as well as the data description for it. So this particular device I'm going to be communicating with is an NXR IO hub, and I'm going to change the IO mode on port 1, pin 4. So you can set it to either an input or an output. Go ahead and switch back to run mode. So that was on port 1. And the index was 65, and the subindex is the particular port, so that will be subindex 1. Index 65, subindex 1. And now we can both read and write service data. So the first thing I'll do is a get index data. You can see it reported read success. And now the data itself that came back when you issued a read is sent to the SIP destination array. So I'll look at the contents of that array. Now the first byte is the size of the data. So it's 1 byte in length. And then the next byte is where the data starts. So the current value is 0. So what I want to do as an example is change pin 4 to an output, which is a value of 1. And that piece of data is 1 byte in length, as was confirmed when I did a read. So the length of the data I'll be writing is 1 byte, and the data itself I'm going to put into this array here. That will be a value of 1. That was the write data array. So you don't have to specify the size in that array, you specify the size with the write length variable. So I'll issue a set index data. It's reported a write success, and then I'll just go ahead and read that back as confirmation. And you can see it's now a value of 1, so the change was successful. Now if you have multiple NXR masters on your network, you need one of these AOIs per master. And it would be common practice to set this up in a carousel type message where you're constantly reading a number of different parameters. If these were light curtains, you'd likely be reading the beam strength, for example, and you can simply have that automatically cycling through different reads in a carousel message. For general setup, this is something that you would only do once. You wouldn't cyclically write the pin 4 IO setting. in a real-world example. So this is just for kind of preliminary setup. You would be changing it like this. But that's the Service Data AOI. So I'm going to go offline, and the next AOI I'll go over is the NXR Configuration AOI.